On March 10, 1876, a 29-year-old man spoke 6 words into a device that had never been tested, and in doing so, connected humanity forever. Boston, Massachusetts, 1876. America is still healing from the wounds of the Civil War. The Industrial Revolution is in full swing. Steam engines roar. Telegraph lines crisscross the nation like veins carrying the lifeblood of commerce and communication. The telegraph, invented just decades earlier, was considered the greatest communication breakthrough in human history. Messages could travel miles in seconds. It was, to the people of 1876, nothing short of miraculous. But one man believed the world could do better. He didn't want to send dots and dashes across a wire. He wanted to send something far more powerful. He wanted to send the human voice. Alexander Graham Bell was born on March 3, 1847, in Edinburgh, Scotland. From the very beginning, sound was not just a curiosity to him, it was a family obsession. His grandfather, Alexander Bell, was a renowned speech therapist. His father, Melville Bell, developed a phonetic alphabet called visible speech, a system designed to help the deaf learn to communicate. And his mother, Eliza, nearly deaf herself, played the piano by pressing her ear against the instrument to feel the vibrations. Young Alexander grew up in a home where sound was studied, dissected, and deeply revered. As a young man, Bell showed a natural curiosity. At just 12 years old, he built a simple machine that could clean wheat, at the request of a friend's father who ran a flour mill. It was a small invention, but it revealed something essential about who Bell was, a mind that didn't just wonder, it built. After tragedy struck his family, both of his brothers died of tuberculosis. The Bell family emigrated to Canada in 1870, and Alexander later moved to Boston, where he would take a job teaching at a school for the deaf. It was there, working with students who could not hear, that Bell became consumed by a question that would define his life. Could electricity carry the human voice? Bell was not the only man chasing this dream. Elisha Gray, an accomplished inventor and co-founder of Western Electric, was working on a similar concept at the same time and date. The race to the patent office would become one of the most disputed rivalries in the history of invention. But Bell had something Gray didn't, a partner who understood electricity as deeply as Bell understood sound. His name was Thomas Watson. Watson was a young electrical designer, skilled with his hands and sharp with a circuit. Bell hired him as his assistant, and the two men formed one of the great partnerships in scientific history. They worked out of a cramped boarding house at 5 Exeter Place in Boston. Long nights, failed experiments, frayed wires, and relentless determination. Bell's core idea was called the harmonic telegraph, a device that could send multiple telegraph messages simultaneously over a single wire using different tones. But the deeper he went, the bigger the vision became. Why stop at tones? Why not transmit the full, complex wave of a human voice? Bell's concept for the telephone relied on the idea that sound could cause variations in electrical current, that the undulations of a voice could be mirrored in fluctuating electricity, transmitted through a wire, and then converted back into sound at the other end. The theory was elegant. The execution was brutally difficult. February 14th, 1876, Valentine's Day. In Washington, D.C., 2 applications arrived at the U.S. Patent Office within hours of each other. Alexander Graham Bell's lawyer filed a patent application for the telephone in the morning. Elisha Gray filed a patent caveat, a notice of intent, just hours later. That was the margin between legacy and obscurity. On March 7th, 1876, the U.S. Patent Office granted Bell patent number 174,465, a patent that would later be called the most valuable patent ever issued in history. But Bell hadn't even made it work yet. He had the patent. Now he needed the proof. March 9th, 1876, Boston. the night before everything changed. Bell and Watson were working late into the evening, as they had done hundreds of times before. The device sat on the table, a transmitter, a receiver, a length of wire connecting two separate rooms of the boarding house. Bell had been refining his design for months. New membranes, new electromagnets, new configurations. Most attempts ended in silence or distortion. The human voice, with all its complexity, its breadth, its warmth, refused to be captured. But something felt different that night. A new liquid transmitter had been assembled. The circuit was clean. Bell gave Watson his instructions. Go to the other room, wait, and listen. March 10th, 1876. Morning. Bell sat at the transmitter. Watson was stationed in the next room, receiver pressed to his ear, waiting in silence. Then, an accident. Bell spilled a small amount of acid from the battery onto his clothing, and in that moment of urgency, without ceremony, without preparation, he spoke into the device. "Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you." 6 words. In the other room, Thomas Watson leaped to his feet. He had heard it. Not static, not a tone, not a click of Morse code. A voice. A real human voice, carried through a wire. Watson later wrote in his memoir that he rushed down the hall, burst into Bell's room, and told him he had heard every word clearly. Bell wrote in his own journal that same night, and his entry was almost casual in its tone, as if he hadn't yet grasped what had just happened. He simply wrote, "I then shouted the following sentence. Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you." To my delight, he came and declared that he could hear my voice distinctly. Just like that, the telephone was real. The world at first did not know what to make of it. Bell demonstrated his telephone publicly at the Philadelphia Centennial Exposition in June 1876, where it astonished visitors, including Emperor Dom Pedro II of Brazil, who reportedly exclaimed, "My God, it talks!" upon hearing a voice through the device. Western Union, the telegraph giant, was offered the patent for $100,000. They turned it down, famously calling the telephone an electrical toy with no commercial value. It was perhaps the worst business decision in American history. Within a year, the Bell Telephone Company was founded. Within a decade, there were over 150,000 telephones in use across the United States. Within Bell's own lifetime, telephone lines stretched across continents and under oceans. The man who had grown up in a household devoted to the power of the human voice had given that voice to the entire world. Today, there are over 8 billion mobile phone subscriptions active on this planet, more phones than people. Every video call, every voice note, every "can you hear me" on a Zoom meeting traces its lineage back to a cramped boarding house in Boston, a spilled battery, and 6 words spoken into a wooden box. Bell went on to invent many other things: the photophone, the metal detector, advances in aeronautics and hydrofoils. He refused to keep a telephone in his study, reportedly finding it an intrusion on his work, an irony that was not lost on those who knew him. He died on August 2nd, 1922. On the day of his funeral, as a mark of respect, every telephone in the United States and Canada was silenced for 1 minute. The instrument that carried his voice to the world fell quiet to honor the man who gave it life. March 10th, 1876. A day that did not make the front pages, a day that most of the world did not notice, a day that happened in a small room between 2 men with a wire and a voice and a dream. But from that one small moment, the world learned to speak to itself. That is the power of a single day in history, and that is why we are here, every single day, to make sure these moments are never forgotten. If today's story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to Chronicle Daily, where every day history has a story worth telling. Drop a comment below. What invention do you think changed the world the most? We read every single one. We'll see you tomorrow, same place, different day, another story that shaped our world.